Hello and welcome to Juicy Scoop. We're going to get into all of your thoughts about the hottest documentary that I was in, The Housewife and the Hustler. I'm going to do some hot topics. And then I have a very, very juicy interview with the author of a new book about the juiciest crime, in my opinion, of all time, Marilyn Monroe's death, her involvement with the Kennedys, and so much on that. I could talk about that forever, and it's a really juicy interview, and I think you guys will be super excited for that. But let's just talk about The Housewife and the Hustler. So I finally got a chance to watch it, and I hope that you guys watch the whole thing. I'm hearing all the reviews, especially from my hardcore Housewife fans, that in the beginning it felt kind of like too glossy, and what is this, and why is Danielle Staub on it? Why is Dana Wilkie on it? I thought they all contributed great. I thought it was great. I couldn't believe, I thought, okay, now I know why they wanted Danielle Staub on it. Because when she said, oh, I worked out at the same strip joint as Erika Jayne, I was like, well, that doesn't say a lot about the caliber of housewives. I mean, like, okay, so you can be a stripper, but hey, if you marry right, one day you'll be on the Housewives, which is exactly what happened. And I just thought it was done so well. And then, after the first little bit of it, of the gloss and the glamour about housewives and about like my commentary was sprinkled throughout, but really setting the stage for the person that maybe wasn't familiar with Real Housewives and who Erika Jayne's husband, Tom Girardi, the famed lawyer, is. Then I really loved it because they really featured a friend of mine. She wasn't a friend of mine at first, but I had Kimberly Archie on my show. I think it was like maybe 6-8 months ago when all this broke. I think maybe when she had filed for divorce is maybe when I had her on. And I found her, I think, on Twitter. She tweeted something, and I reached out to her on DM, and we did a Zoom because it was during COVID. And I really liked her personality. I'm so glad that you guys got to see her on the documentary because she is really funny. And she's coming back on my show because she has even more info that we were talking on the phone today. She's going to be on Tuesday's show of stuff that you'll even find more interesting, all leading to the question we all want to know. How much did Erika Jayne know? How much did she know through the last 20 years of being with him? Was it just the last few years? Was it just the last few months before she filed for divorce? What was it? Opinion is I definitely think she knew. I think she knew that this is the way the business was run. That's what I think because of some information that we're going to share on Tuesday's show, I think you guys may agree with that too. But what is happening today with all the castmates? Like, there is no other place that dumps a friend and an association quicker than Hollywood. Okay, the minute someone is no longer of value to you, you dump them, you act like you don't know them, you act like, no, that wasn't my best male comedian friend that I did 5 shows with, that I hung out with every day, that was sending inappropriate texts to girls under 18. Who? I'll never speak to that person again. Like, that's it. It's over. It's done. That is the way Hollywood people that really care about social climbing and upping themselves treat each other. So I just think this is bad. And we saw that up until now, all the other castmates, well, not all the other castmates, I'll say Dorit, Kyle, and Lisa Rinna are the ones I saw throughout the summer, throughout the falls, when we knew this was happening. Actually, I'm going to say after the announcement of the divorce, we saw them continuing to like all of Erika Jayne's posts, which some of them I was like, do you have to like it? Like, are you required to like it? Like, she's laying around in money and she's like, zero fucks. And that's after we know everything that's going on with the victims of Tom Girardi, his former clients. We know that she's filed for divorce. So that was kind of amazing that they kept supporting each other. There was a photo that was recently posted with all of their hands saying like, we're in this together. So I'm guessing they either watch tonight or they're watching today. And I don't know, I got intel from someone who was attending the Kathy Hilton viewing party that knew some people that were in charge of it. And they were panicked because she was apparently supposed to come, and nobody wants to make sure they're not going to be in a compromised position where they're going to be photographed with Erika. If you have a photograph with Harvey Weinstein at the Oscars, you're like, fuck, what did I know? This was 10 years ago. If you're at a photograph with Ghislaine Maxwell, that's not great. Jeffrey Epstein. So you might want to be like, I don't know if I want to get a photo with this person. And sometimes that happens where you're on the red carpet and then someone goes, oh, hi, how are you? And you're like, oh, shit. I just saw this doc about you being a complete dick and your husband's a criminal. Hi, Erika. Let's get a photo together, ladies. Can we get you together? Like, oh my God, no. And now, wow, Heather McDonald is still best friends with Erika Jayne. So people are going to be careful. And you guys heard my interview with Garcelle. I was, what I could really ask. I know things are coming up. I definitely think Garcelle is smart, and you see her asking Erika, like, what did you know? And there's times Erika's saying things, and I mentioned how the camera just goes to Garcelle's face, and she's just so telling in her expressions. She doesn't have to say anything. And when I mentioned that in the interview, she kind of was like, yeah, you'll see. So I think definitely some of the women on the cast were very skeptical of her behavior and what she knew, and others were more supportive. And I think that's going to be really interesting to watch on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills for sure. So this just came out today after the doc aired. Erika Jayne's attorneys, who obviously watched it, these are the lawyers that were supposed to help her with her bankruptcy attorneys. They said they are ending the relationship with her. They are no longer going to represent Erika Jayne due to lack of trust after documentary airs. So does the evidence suggest that maybe the star was refusing to cooperate? Yeah, that's not great. That just means that when your attorney dumps you, it means A, you're really difficult. You don't listen to them. Reputation for attorney doesn't want to represent you, in my opinion. So we'll see. I mean, this is going to be really juicy. But as far as my participation in it, like I said, I didn't know how much I was going to be in it. I was happy with the bits that they showed, and we're going to show some on my Instagram throughout the next couple days of like the clips. But I love that they brought up that she was on my podcast like 4 years ago, and how I was thinking, okay, I made it very clear. This is before we filmed it. You can come cash. She was in like sweats, but she still had her wardrobe person, her hair, her makeup. She had Clyde, who used to work for the Kardashians, who I know. And then when we took just the one photo afterwards, they came around, they put the lip gloss on for her. Like, you can't just like go like that and put it yourself. They touched the hair up, and even the wardrobe guy like fixed the sweatshirt a little as she stood there. I mean, hey, they're getting paid for the day. At least they're being delights and being cooperative. But what I said on the doc was like thinking, wow, that's more than a $2,000 day to have those people with you all afternoon. And I don't think she was doing other press that day. I think it was just mine. And so she just had no concept of money or even ever trying to save a buck or whatever when it came to herself. And that says a lot. I mean, also in that interview, I remember asking her about how she got married, and she said, oh, we did it at the Los Angeles Country Club. Very small wedding, just 2 witnesses, and the judge that he was golfing with married us. I'm like, that's just so weird, like a last-minute marriage. What was going on, And then I said, and then your son? No, he was in New York with his father going to school. And I remember thinking, oh, was he like in boarding school? Is he like 12, 15? Then I did the math at home and I was like, no, he was 5. She also said, yeah, well, I knew I wanted to be a star. So I had to leave New York and go to LA. Well, it's not like she was in Kansas. She was in New York. There's agents, there's TV shows that film there, there's modeling, there's Broadway, there's that. But no, she wanted to come to LA because she probably just always had a dream of living in LA, which is okay. If she has a great ex-husband who's a great father, it doesn't mean that he can't, adequately raise a child. But I thought what was always interesting in her story is once she marries Tom Girardi, and again, she's not stupid. She, not only was she a stripper and she probably really learned how to, make a guy fall in love with her, which I wish I knew how to do that. But anyway, she was a server at a restaurant that was very exclusive. And girls, yeah, go do that. You want to meet a rich guy? Don't be a waitress in a crappy area where no people of wealth or power come into. I say, yeah, go do that. If you can get a job there, do it. And once they met and she married him, now you had the means then to try to pursue acting and singing and dancing, but you didn't, and maybe he said, no, I don't want you doing that. Or maybe you just really didn't have that much desire. Maybe your real goal was, I just want to be rich. I don't know. Maybe I'll be rich because I get on Friends. Maybe I'll be rich because I'm going to marry this old, super rich attorney. The point is, she wasn't in LA becoming a star while her son was in New York. She was in LA, as she said, shopping and going on trips and dinners on private jets. And then she said, how many more bags can I buy? How many more different latest jewelry, belt, dresses can I get? It gets boring. And that's when I said, I'm going to reinvent myself. And that's when I created Erika Jayne, my alter ego. I met with my old buddy from Atlanta, and he put a show together, and we wrote songs and got a music director and Paula Abdul's music person and choreographer. I don't know. She got everybody that he could pay that would work, put her music career together. I know it made no money until she, got on Housewives. And then when she had shows where you'd actually buy a ticket to see, like when we see her in LA performing at some club here, it probably broke even because she had so many people on stage that she had to pay. And so there you go. It's going to be very juicy to see what happens with that. So, but like I said, I did like myself in the doc. Thank you for telling me that I looked good. I was happy with how I looked, and I liked all the parts. So, like I said, we're going to highlight some of those things. I thought this was interesting. Chrissy Krause, who is a Juicy Scooper, said, is this the same necklace? And it's Kris Jenner has this very big diamond cross framed in white diamonds. Inside are what appears to be yellow diamonds. And it is the necklace that Scott Disick also presented Amelia Gray, Lisa Rinna's daughter, with on her 20th birthday. They had a big party. She posted about it, and she just loved the necklace so much. Now, that is kind of interesting, but look, they all share each other's connections. Everybody gets the same flowers. Everybody lines up the cookies the same way. One person buys a house in Hidden Hills. Everybody buys a house in Hidden Hills. Kris gets her Palm Desert house in Madison Club, an exclusive new area, and it's modern. Courtney buys one. Kylie buys one. Kim will probably buy one. And then they'll all live there. And they'll all use the same architect, the same decorator, the same. So my point is, he probably went to their family jeweler, who also had this necklace, sold it to Kris, I don't know, a couple years ago. And he was like, ooh, I like that. It could have very well be that it was not his intention to get his girlfriend the exact same necklace that was already in Kris's collection. But to my Juicy Scooper, I want to say, you're brilliant. Thank you. Very juicy. Okay, you guys. Yesterday, the news broke that Chrissy Teigen again returned to social media to write a longer apology about what a horrible troll she was. And I mean, here's the thing. I was like, I don't even know if I want to talk about the latest apology. She just went basically longer and deeper than what she said before, saying, I thought people would like me if I attacked celebrities. I was trying to be funny, and I thought it's funnier if I go edgier. That'll get more attention. And I piled on, and that's what I did. And I did on the internet, and I'm a horrible troll, and I'm so embarrassed. And again, just the same type of stuff. Then she also posted like her arm with tattoos on it or something about how her child graduated from kindergarten and, just acting like the next thing. We're on to it. Remember me? Cute mom, cute family, cute seeing husband. All the four of us are adorable. Like, remember why you follow me. I'm just cute. People wrote very nice things. Everyone said, we love you, Chrissy. People grow, all this stuff. Well, when this happens, then other things come up. And one of the things that came up were all her really creepy tweets about her pedophile jokes. A lot of what she thought was a pedophile joke. And you can look them up. They're not hard to find. People have them, even though she's removed them from her feed. And they're about toddlers and tiaras. Watching them, I should be arrested. I just saw a little baby that looked like a porn star, the kind of porn star that will do anything. Does that make me a bad person? Jokes with something about Pedialyte being pedophile light. I don't know. Seems like a pattern. And if they're spread out over 2 years, I don't know. That's like her go-to thing, and she's just trying so hard to be funny. I don't know if I ever said this, but Chris Frangiola said he met her, and either he met her at a party or I remember she being on Chelsea once because Chelsea was like, you're so funny, your Twitter's so funny. And she said, this was it. Chris told me that she tweeted him and was like, I'm obsessed with Chelsea lately. How do I get on the round table? I want to be on the round table. So she wanted to be funny, seen as funny. I think she watched our show religiously. I think she took the topics that we talked about on pop culture. We were mean to celebrities. That was the nature of the show back then. And she just kept trying and trying and trying. And doing it, she hurt a lot of people and really took it far and was very sick. So then this story came out yesterday as well. Michael Costello claims Chrissy Teigen's bullying left him suicidal. So let me just tell you the story of basically what he said. He says that there was hold on, I'm going to get right to this. He said, I didn't want to do this, but I cannot be happy until I speak my mind. I need to heal. And in order for me to do that, I must reveal what I've been going through. I wanted to kill myself, and I still am traumatized, depressed, and have thoughts of suicide. His story is that somebody doctored an exchange in which he used the N-word. It was, in his words, he said it was proven to be doctored, but it got out there, and then she propelled it, saying he's like done, and put it out there. He tried to contact her many times, saying, please, Chrissy, it has been proven that this isn't true. This is not me, but you're really hurting my career. Can we just stop? And we're going to get to what the exchange was. So he says about it. And the other thing that I thought was really interesting, he says, in 2014, I received a public comment from Chrissy Teigen on my Instagram page, accusing me of being a racist. She apparently formed her own opinion of me based on a Photoshop comment floating around the internet, which has been now proven to be false by Instagram and since taken down. When for the past 7 years, I lived with this deep, unhealed trauma. I didn't share this with anyone because I was living in fear of losing some of my most profitable brand relationships, in fear of losing friends and allies, and in fear of being blacklisted even more by the power of elites who run the industry. So he says, he basically says, I'm going to just summarize it, that he would have clients, he would have opportunities, he had all this stuff lined up, and then like a day or two, it'd be canceled. And he knew that it kept coming from this because every year since 2014, Chrissy Teigen gained more followers, became more popular, every day E! News would have a story about some cute thing that she posted, okay? It was literally every day. Now, he also says who was also involved in this was Monica Rose. That is a stylist that I believed worked with the Kardashians and had a falling out with Khloe. And we never knew why, but Khloe no longer worked with her. But Chrissy Teigen is like, even though I'm friends with you guys, I'm keeping Monica. And he claims Monica Rose was just as bad in trying to keep him from having work as Chrissy Teigen was. Let me see. Let me see where this is. Okay. Oh, okay. Let's see. So, so this is the exchange he has. He says, "Chrissy, can I call you?" She writes, "No, I do not have anything to say to you. You will get what's coming to you." "Chrissy, I've never called anyone the N-word. Those fake images were photoshopped from a former disgruntled employee." And hold on. And then she said, "Good luck with that. LMAO. Hope that story keeps your already dead career going. Please call me. I'm suffering from this more than you can imagine." He leaves this number. "So many people are attacking me over this. It's a fake story, but your comment is adding more fuel to the fire." And she just, refuses to respond. And then he says, then she does respond, "Good. Racist people like you deserve to suffer and die." Again, die. She didn't say kill yourself, but she said die. She wanted a lot of people to die. Courtney Stodden, a lot of people she was saying go kill yourself. Racist people like you deserve to suffer and die. You might as well be dead. Your career is over. Just watch. And then she did what I've talked about before in Hollywood, where she tells people any chance she gets that he's awful, he's a racist. If she finds out maybe he's on a show or maybe styling someone, she'll call someone to make sure that then the next day he's getting everything ready, and then, "Oh, we don't need you anymore." This happens all the time because you want to please the bigger star. And not only is Chrissy Teigen a big star, but her husband is John Legend. So he's a really big star. He's a spokesperson. He's delightful. His songs are on commercials and they're played everywhere. Like, they are very, very powerful. And she had fun. This was a fun little thing. Why continue to ruin this guy's career? Because it was fun. It was fun for her and Monica Rose. He's just a designer. There's other clothes people could buy. Like, him being successful is not going to bother you. But she was trying to act so righteous. Yet the righteous thing would have been to do is go, "You know what? I need you to send me the proof that this actually wasn't true." Then he would actually be able to call her, send her the proof, and then she'd be like, "All right, we're good. I'll remove it. I won't talk about it anymore." This happens. That's why sometimes even when I see stuff, I'm like, before I freak out, let me really make sure that this isn't doctored up, that this isn't a joke, that this isn't, yes, there's so many fake things on the internet. I mean, everybody just thought that this cover of Vanity Fair were all the Real Housewives. No, someone doctored it up. And I think 90% of people that saw that yesterday thought it was a real Vanity Fair cover and were giving their opinions of which housewife should be on the cover and which one shouldn't have been. It wasn't even real, people. So, imagine now it's out there that you said something nasty about one of the women that were featured when it wasn't even a real Vanity Fair cover. So that's my opinion on that. Guys, I'm coming on the road. I'll be in Miami this weekend. Please see me at the Miami Improv. Everything is at heathermcdonald.net. Lots of great cities. The tickets are going really, really fast. And these are my dates until 2022. So you need to go to these cities, and I don't know when I'll be back. So please get your tickets. I do not want to hear you cry about it. All right, now for a very juicy interview with the author of such a great book, and he has so much knowledge about everything involving the mysterious death of Marilyn Monroe, the Kennedy involvement. It's great. So here we go with Mark Shaw. Hello and welcome to Juicy Scoop. I've got a real juicy book, and the author, Mark Shaw, is here. It's called Collateral Damage, and it's the mysterious deaths of Marilyn Monroe and Dorothy Kilgallen and the ties that bind them to Robert Kennedy and the JFK assassination. Welcome, Mark. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Heather. Thanks so much.
I mean, this is a very juicy book. When I think about Juicy Scoop and Juicy Scoop history, the story behind Marilyn Monroe and the Kennedy brothers, the president, John F. Kennedy, and his brother, Robert Kennedy, is just something I've always been fascinated about. And even when I was a little girl and I'd hear about, JFK in books, my mom had told me, well, he cheated on Jackie all the time. And I still was like, there'd be something always in a history class, presented that he was such a great president. But I was always just thinking, but he was such a horrible husband. So I was always just fascinated by this. So tell me a little, just give our listeners, because a lot of my listeners are young, so they don't really know how incredible this story was. And what was the common knowledge while it was happening? When did people start to know about these rumors?
Well, you have Joe Kennedy as the father, and he ran around as well. I remember when I wrote, this is actually my fifth book touching on the JFK assassination. I wrote The Poisoned Patriarch about Joe Kennedy, and of course all of his trysts. At one point, he took his wife and Gloria Swanson to Europe on the same boat, the same ship, having an affair with one, being married to the other. So as you can imagine, all of those philandering aspects of Joe filtered down to the two boys and to John first and then to Robert. And so, I heard about this when I was young as well. I had the same feelings you did, that come on, but they were running around with, there's so many books written about all of that. And that tainted my thoughts about them both. I was a little reluctant to write this particular book because I always had admiration for John Kennedy with a lot of things that he did. With Bobby, the Cuban Missile Crisis and civil rights and all of that. And in fact, if I may tell you, I was not going to write this book. I had no intentions of doing so. I wrote the book about Joe Kennedy, and then I wrote the Reporter Who Knew Too Much about Dorothy Kilgallen, who we need to talk about because I'm an investigator like Dorothy was. And then I thought that was it, that would be enough. But people kept asking me if there's a connection between Dorothy and Marilyn, their life and times and their deaths. And that made me spread it out because Dorothy had investigated the JFK assassination for 18 months. She knew JFK. He used to come to her home. They were friends. When she went to the White House with her son, Kerry, he was really nice to the little boy, gave him a PT 109 pin and all of that. She really cared about him. When he died, she launched this investigation. She went to the Jack Ruby trial. She's the only one who interviewed Ruby. And then she launched this investigation, which led up, as we can talk about at some point, this mysterious death of hers in 1965 when she got too close to the truth. They said she overdosed on drugs, but I've proven that she was murdered because she was a reporter who knew too much. I'm pleased to say that the New York Police Department, the Cold Case Squad, I've heard from a detective there, and they're going to look into her death. So I'm pleased about that. But let's get back to what you said. So I was done. That was enough books.
Wait, I have one question about Joe being the father who was the known cheater. Gloria Swanson, she was a famous actress, right?
She was, very much so.
I also find that kind of interesting that then the boys, his sons, this tie to Hollywood with the Kennedys, and that they liked the Hollywood ties and they liked the actresses. And what was the connection to the, I guess it would be the brother-in-law that had the Hollywood connections? Lawson, or what was that name?
Peter Lawford.
Lawford. Now, what's the connection of Peter Lawford? Who's he married to, and what's that connection?
He was married to a Kennedy sister.
Okay.
Escapes me now. But we'll talk about Jean Kennedy Smith in a minute, because that was one of the ways that I found out Robert Kennedy had an affair with Marilyn. But yes, they both, they were like trophies. Gloria Swanson, and I hate to say that, it disturbs me. Most of my books have to do with standing up for women's rights. In this case, I've become Dorothy's voice and Marilyn's voice, and I'm going to try to get the justice for them that they deserve, that they didn't get back when they died in the 60s. But they were trophies. And of course, Joe had Gloria Swanson, who was a big deal, way back when. Your younger listeners probably won't remember, but she was. So now, when Jack Kennedy was introduced to Marilyn, boy, you can just imagine what happened. Although the affair there, Heather, was much shorter than people remember. A lot of people don't even remember that Robert Kennedy had an affair with Marilyn. That's what surprised me some. So anyway, I launched into this investigation.
Well, I have a question.
Okay,
so she had the affair with JFK while he was president first, and then she got with Bobby?
Right. Do you remember, you're so young, you probably don't, but most people remember when Marilyn sang Happy Birthday.
Right. Oh, I think everybody knows that. Yeah.
Madison Square Garden on, I think it was his 45th birthday. It would have been because he died the next year and he was 46. And she had on that sequin dress, see-through, and looked like she was naked. Dorothy Kilgallen wrote that Marilyn was having a love affair with the audience. So yes, it was Jack first, and there's a photograph. Let me see if I have it here. I just wanted to show you. It's rather interesting. It's the three of them. I think there's only one photo in history of the three of them. Anyway, it was backstage at Madison Square Garden, and Marilyn's in the middle, and here's Jack Kennedy, and here's Bobby lurking over here. Okay, so that relationship only went on for about a month until Joe Kennedy said, "No, you can't do that. You're going to run for re-election in '64." And Bobby then took up the interest in Marilyn. So when I began my journey looking into this, my contribution to history here, I right away honed in on that relationship between Marilyn and Bobby, because I never bought the idea that Marilyn committed suicide. When I heard about it, I didn't believe it. I still don't. And I've proven in the new book that it didn't happen.
I never believed it either for, just the things I've read about as well and heard about. I just think it's always so weird when siblings, I guess they call them Eskimo twins or something is the term, when like two brothers or two sisters sleep with the same person. Yeah. And what is the understanding of, did JFK just not care that he was like, well, I can't be with her, so I guess my less famous brother can be? Like, did they hide it from JFK? Because I would think that would be disturbing that his brother then was being with his former mistress. Or did they not care because it was about passing around the trophy?
I don't think John Kennedy would have given a damn, frankly. I think he finally had decided, that was over. His dad, he always obeyed his father. You can't do anything with this woman. And so there was Bobby lurking. And I have all this proof of that. The first thing I had to do was try to show a relationship between Dorothy and Marilyn. And Dorothy had written several columns about Marilyn. The first one was about her 3 marriages that she had, and she was still looking for love. Remember, she was married to a childhood sweetheart.
Right.
And then Joe DiMaggio, and then Arthur Miller, okay? The playwright. And so Dorothy was watching what Marilyn was doing. They were friends. Marilyn had been to Dorothy's home and all of that. And so it was interesting as I started looking into this to see what I could find proving the relationship between Marilyn and Bobby Kennedy. And here's this letter. And it's from Jean Kennedy Smith, who's the president's sister. This is to Marilyn. Understand that you and Bobby are the new item, ! We all of us believe that you should come with him when he comes back east to visit. Okay? Yeah.
So wait, hold on.
I found that. Yeah.
So the sister who is married herself at the time is totally fine with her brother, Bobby Kennedy, who has 7 or 8 kids at the time and married to Ethel, right? She's fine with the fact that he's screwing Marilyn because she's a famous movie star and she wants to be friends with her, or what?
Well, she wanted the best for her brother, No, that Kennedy family, as well as I do. There's this curse of the Kennedy family, all the terrible things that have happened to them, but a lot of them, they cause problems with. Here's another column that you'd be interested from Dorothy. She said, Marilyn's health must be improving. And this is in July of 62, a month before she died. Marilyn Monroe's death must be improving. She's been attending select Hollywood parties and become the talk of the town again. In California, they're circling a photograph of her that certainly isn't as bare as the famous calendar, but very interesting. And she's cooking in the sexual appeal department. She's proved vastly alluring to a handsome gentleman who is a bigger name than Joe DiMaggio in his heyday. So don't write off Marilyn as finished. Well, at first I thought that might be Jack Kennedy, but that relationship was over. So it obviously was Bobby. And then Dorothy in another column says, Marilyn has a new man in her life and so on and so forth. And so I put together the relationship between Marilyn and RFK. And he was coming to Los Angeles all the time, I proved, because he had a book called The Enemy Within, where he, exposed his hatred for the mafia, and he was going to have a movie made of it. I've even got documents that show him staying at the Beverly Hills Hotel and being at the restaurants. There's a CIA documents that puts him in Marilyn's home. There's all of these evidences that they were having this love affair.
So what I'm gathering, just from what I've been told from you, I think that he convinced her that he really did love her, that he would leave his wife for her. She had the support of his sister, and she confides in the reporter, Dorothy, and Dorothy's excited about it, and she's kind of planting the seeds. And I think Marilyn absolutely thought there was going to be some announcement soon, maybe that he was going to get divorced and that she could be in the White House one day too, or something. Do you think that's what? Yeah.
If I didn't know better, I would think you wrote the CIA memo. All right, really, because you have just exactly said what's going on here. They talk about their torrid love affair. The subject Marilyn repeatedly called the Attorney General and complained about the way she was ignored by him. The subject threatened to hold a press conference and would tell all, including about the love affair, and in here it says national security secrets, such as them telling her, JFK and RFK, about the bases in Cuba and knew of the president's plan to kill Castro. So you have this pillow talk apparently going on between JFK and Marilyn and then RFK and Marilyn. And there's no, it's logical that at some particular point, if she said she was going to go to the media, and I've proven in the book through several eyewitnesses that that's what she said, that her life was going to be in jeopardy.
And it's so interesting when you talk about like the three other men that she was married to. I mean, we know anyone that's read about Marilyn, was, very, as you'd say today, sex positive. She had a lot of lovers, and so first was the childhood sweetheart. Then Joe DiMaggio was, the hot baseball player.
Right.
Then Arthur Miller was successful, but like the nerdy playwright. So you're like, what's her type? And then she's like got the Irish Catholic, preppy politician.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like she's just really searching. Like this is a weird question. I'm sorry, but like, how did she keep from like getting pregnant all these years? Because
there have been rumors that she was, but I've never been able to confirm them. I'd like to tell you, if people really want to know about Marilyn, the human side of it, there's 2 books. Mm-hmm. She wrote her own book, My Story. It was written with a playwright. And this is one of the first books that I looked at. In this particular book, I did not use any sources with books or anything else from 1965 on. They were all before 65, because you may remember, Marilyn died August 62, JFK November 63, Dorothy Kilgallen November 65. They died within 40 minutes. Now, I have to say...
They died within 40 minutes? You mean 4 years?
40 months. 40
months, okay.
40 months of each other, and a lot of people don't know that. And so, frankly, I should tell you that one of the reasons that I've been able to write this book is because I looked at their deaths ass backwards. I wrote about JFK's death, then I wrote about Dorothy's death, and then they came back to Marilyn's. You would normally do Marilyn's death first, but doing so opened up this window into all three deaths. The other book that I should tell you about that's most interesting is called Fragments. Marilyn Monroe was not a dumb blonde. This is a real misnomer, and it really bothers me. I almost got a chill as I just said that, and I've humanized her in the book. She read a lot of books. She was a smart woman. For God's sake, she read Ulysses. I tried to read Ulysses. I mean, she was a really smart woman. And Fragments has a lot of her poetry and writings that she did in hotel rooms on the back of stationery and things like that. So I really tried to humanize this woman. I mean, Dorothy Kilgallen was the mother of 3 when she died. Marilyn was not suicidal going into August 62, except for her problems with Bobby Kennedy. She had just solved problems with 20th Century Fox for the movie Something's Got to Give, and that was going to go forward. She had just gotten an offer for a Broadway play. She always wanted to be taken seriously as an actress. And more than that, she and Joe DiMaggio were going to reconcile, and she hoped to God that one thing would happen. She would get pregnant and she could have a child. There's a photograph of her in the book with a child. She loved children. She wanted to have a child. The whole thing about abortions, who knows? The whole thing about getting pregnant before, who knows? But that was her mindset as she went into August 1962. And that was misplayed to the media that, Marilyn's down and out and she's a drug addict and all those kind of things. That just wasn't true, according to my research.
Well, if she was in the hopes to get back with Joe DiMaggio and they were talking her ex-husband, then why did they still feel like it was such a threat that she would blow the gasket about Robert? Like, why wouldn't they think, why was she still then threatening to tell about Robert if, in fact, maybe she had accepted it and wanted to get back with her ex?
Marilyn said she felt like a piece of meat, to quote her, with the Kennedys. And they had used her. And the week before she died, she was at a lodge up on the border of Nevada and California. The Kennedys were there. Supposedly they were going to film her having sex with any number of people, including Frank Sinatra and a gangster that was there and all of that. And she was just livid. And that's when
I was reading that part in the book. I was confused that she found out they were going to film it. Wouldn't she have known that they were going to film it? Or they were going to say, why don't you have sex with Frank Sinatra and let us film it so we can watch it back, like at the White House? I'm so confused.
They would have never told her. They would have never told her until somebody did tell her, one of her friends up there. And I think it was Buddy Greco, who many people won't remember, but was a singer at the time and everything. And I believe I've been able to show, and there's a gentleman named Gianni Russo also, who played Carlo in The Godfather, and he wrote a book called The Hollywood Godfather, which is a great book and goes into Marilyn. He knew her when she was young and everything. He said that they finally told her. She started screaming. She tried to get a hold of Joe DiMaggio to come get her. Somehow or another, she got to L.A., but she made that damning statement that she was going to go to the media, as it says in the CIA document, and maybe she wasn't going to, but the threat of doing that was her way of getting back at being used by these Kennedys, these powerful men with all this money and everything like that. Would she have gone to the media? We will never know, because she was killed one day after this CIA document that I told you about. One day after that. And the biggest problem with pointing the guilt at Bobby was the fact that he said he was in San Francisco on the days before Marilyn died. Well, I've broken that alibi wide open. There's a 20th Century Fox ledger that I found, for instance, that on the very day Marilyn died, they say a helicopter landed over here with Peter Lawford and Bobby Kennedy in there. He was picked up by a limousine. I've got a Beverly Hills police officer who stopped the car at midnight, just after Marilyn supposedly died. It had Peter Lawford driving, Robert Kennedy in the back seat, and Marilyn's psychiatrist in the front. So he didn't have an alibi. And what we believe is that he and Peter Lawford that evening went to Marilyn's home and begged her not to go forward with going to the media and all of that. And she absolutely refused. And when she did that, she was dead. At some point, she was dead. Bobby Kennedy could not let her go to the media with all that information. Can you imagine her going to the media and talking about the fact the Kennedys were going to kill Castro? I mean, it would have destroyed both men's careers. She was the actress who knew too much, just like Dorothy was the reporter who knew too much. Bless them both.
So how do you think they did it then?
My feeling is that Bobby Kennedy obviously had operatives that they could have used. Where he found them, I don't know exactly. But in the book, I tried to recreate what I think happened that evening, and without going into detail. Basically, what I've tried to do in this case is to resolve 3 true crime murder mysteries: JFK, Marilyn, and Dorothy. So I don't want to give away my conclusion, but I will tell you this. It was based on 3 clues that I found. Dorothy Kilgallen was this incredible investigative reporter. The Jack Ruby trial, but also the Lindbergh baby kidnapping case, the Dr. Sam Shepard case, best known for being on What's My Line, but she was an amazing reporter and a great writer as well. And so I tried to look at this case through Dorothy's eyes. And what she would have done was look for little clues that made a lot of difference to her. The first one was that Marilyn was supposed to have ingested 40 to 50 pills with, barbiturates, phenobarbital, and then chloral hydrate. And even a sergeant, a detective who was on the scene said, wait a minute, that couldn't have happened between the time that she supposedly ingested it and when she died. It was impossible. That was the first thing that really caused me to wonder. The second was that there was a physical injury to Marilyn when she died in the autopsy. They first ruled it was an overdose, and I've got both of these. And then the certificate of death said it was probable suicide, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But anyway, probable suicide. So I looked in there, and Thomas Noguchi, the infamous coroner who looked at all that, talked about a fresh bruise on her. And so I thought that could possibly mean that, listen, that night, operatives of Bobby Kennedy's came to her door, opened it, used chloroform to stagger her, to put her in a state where she didn't know what was happening. And on the way back to the bedroom where she was found, that she would have her thigh, her hip would have hit something, causing that fresh bruise, because there was no other reason for it. And the other one was really interesting, because when the police got to to Marilyn's house, the housekeeper was doing the laundry. She was using the washing machine. And that triggered in my mind, as a former criminal defense lawyer, you look for all these things that you don't think make sense. It didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to the detective either there. He wondered what was going on. So it made me to believe that when she was taken into the bedroom, she didn't ingest those pills. There was another way of killing her, of poisoning her. And I divulge how that happened in Collateral Damage.
Mm. And wasn't it always that she was found nude, and then there was always controversy of people saying she didn't sleep nude, or she does sleep nude, or people who suicide? What was the whole nude thing of people thinking that meant 2 different things?
Well, you're so smart, because you're echoing exactly what Dorothy Kilgallen surmised. She wrote a column. It's this one right here. It actually started with something about Ethel Merman, who was a star at that point. But then she asked all these questions about Marilyn's death. Readers had sent them in, why was the light on in the bedroom when she always slept in the dark? If the door was locked, how did the housekeeper get in there? Because there wasn't any way, unless she went all the way to the outside. And her bedroom, she said she saw a light under the door. She couldn't have gotten there without going through the bathroom and all of that. She wondered why Marilyn was nude. She wondered, a lot of things about what happened that didn't seem to make sense to her. And so she asked those questions. And then she wrote, and what I believe is the real truth hasn't been told. And when I read that sentence, I was going to write this book, because Dorothy was smart enough to have suspected that it wasn't suicide. The problem we have here, and I have almost 50 similarities in the book between the life and times and deaths of Marilyn and Dorothy. But the worst one is when Dorothy Kilgallen died, with there being an obvious staged death scene and the motives there to have killed her and the statements she made about being in danger and all of that, there was no investigation of any kind. I've even got Dr. Michael Baden, the infamous forensic guy, to admit that the verdict was wrong, that she didn't overdose. No investigation. What happened when Marilyn died? Well, Bobby Kennedy's good friend, Robert Parker, the police chief in Los Angeles, decided to handle the investigation. They didn't go to the scene. They didn't interview anybody. What did they do? They appointed a 3-panel psychiatrist group to look into her mental health at the time she died. Predictably, they came back that she was suicidal. End of the case. Closed. Done. Never got any justice then. Marilyn didn't get justice. Dorothy didn't get justice. And really, JFK never got any justice when he died, with all these ludicrous Oswald alone theories and everything. So the connection between them is that they were all denied justice. But these two women did not deserve to die at those early ages. You know, Marilyn was 36 years old. Dorothy was 52. And as long as I live, I will continue to try to get justice for both of them. And you know, one other thing, if I don't tell you,
Going.
At the end of the book, I humanize them. I try to tell the reader what we lost. All right. JFK, yeah, he had his flaws. He was a womanizer and everything. But, you know, there were incredible things he could have done as president. I point out that he never got to spend time with those 2 young children of his. That's what we lost. With Dorothy, she was the mother of 3. What would she have done with regard to the JFK assassination investigation? What would she have done in her life? You know, she was syndicated to 200 newspapers across the country. She had a radio show, listened to 1 million people. I mean, the things she could have done in her life. And then Marilyn, you know, maybe the most beautiful woman who ever lived. I really try to portray her smile in this book and show who she was, and how she treated people. She was, yeah, she had her flaws. She may have run around a lot and all of that, but you know about her terrible childhood. She was always looking for love, but she really cared about people. I looked up Sir Laurence Olivier, what he had to say about her and how much he loved her, and the other actors did. She once apologized to the whole crew for being late. That's not the Marilyn that is portrayed today. The Marilyn that's portrayed is that she killed herself, and that shouldn't happen.
And what's interesting about the book is that you're saying that had there been a real investigation over Marilyn's death and Bobby, you know, they investigated Bobby, then the people that killed JFK, like, explain that a little bit. Like,
yeah.
Okay, to our people. Go ahead.
All right. So what I did after I connected their life and times and deaths, here is my theory. If Bobby Kennedy would have been prosecuted for the death of Marilyn Monroe based on compelling evidence at the time, all right, he would have had to resign as Attorney General, and he would have been powerless to do anything further, including going after the mafia, especially one mafioso, all right? That would have affected the fact that I have proven in my previous books that if you look at the JFK assassination differently than anybody else has ever done, why Bobby wasn't killed instead of why JFK was, because, as the Ruby prosecutor told me, Bobby had many more enemies than JFK did, okay? So if Bobby is powerless, then those enemies of Bobby's who killed JFK would not have had to do so because he would have already been powerless. And thus there would have been no JFK assassination. And thus Dorothy Kilgallen would not have been killed in 1965 because she would have had no investigation to no JFK assassination to investigate. All right. So the deaths of Dorothy Kilgallen and JFK are collateral damage to the abuse of power by Bobby Kennedy, changing the course of history, in my opinion.
And when the news came out to the world, we have very sad news. Marilyn Monroe, committed suicide. And was there knowledge? Were there people talking, how people are like, Epstein didn't kill himself. Were people talking like that at cocktail parties and at work? And were there tabloids and things writing with these thoughts back then, or did they come many years later?
No, there were those who stood up for her. Rock Hudson, I remember, Olivier, there are others. Dorothy certainly was, but not enough of them, in my opinion. I think there was a lot of jealousy with what Marilyn had accomplished and all of that. But once that verdict was put out by the coroner's office and the police department that she killed herself, and there wasn't any publicity about the Marilyn RFK relationship and all of that, it just died away. It just went away. And then they buried her, and they had a beautiful eulogy by Lee Strasberg that I put in the book and everything. But she was forgotten, just like Dorothy Kilgallen was forgotten. And that's too bad too, because look at the films that Marilyn made. If you go to YouTube and look at those films, I saw one the other day of her very first film, and she just lights up the screen. She's the Steve McQueen or the who else should we say, Elizabeth Taylor or whatever. When they're on the screen, there's nobody else there. Right. And so unfortunately, though, we lost that woman, and she lives on through her films, but not enough people stood up for her. That's for sure.
Also, there's just something so shitty about murdering someone and then putting it out. It's one thing to murder someone and hope that they don't find out that it's you. And people always go, I wonder who killed so-and-so. But then to stage it like she killed herself. She was in such a, depressed state. And especially back then when mental illness really was perceived differently than it is today. There was not a lot of sympathy, a lot of empathy. It was like, oh, what a mess she was. Yeah. It's like a double murder. It's like the worst thing, to make it appear like it was something that she did to herself.
Yeah, excuse me. Right at the front of the book, I say, people use the JFK assassination like, you're about as likely to do this as we'll find out who killed JFK. That's the first thing they think about JFK is his assassination. Okay, that shouldn't happen. All right, with Marilyn, the first thing they think about is, well, yeah, she was a druggie and she was suicidal and she killed herself. That's her reputation, unfortunately. With Dorothy Kilgallen, all of her accomplishments and everything that she did, well, she was a druggie and she overdosed. This goes on today. You know that. These cover-ups that happen with regard to things, I'm hoping that what I'm bringing out with this book and all of that will help with restoring those reputations. But there's going to be people out there who think, hey, Mark, this is just another one of those crazy theories and all this other kind of thing, because people will believe what they want to believe. It's like when I used to represent murder suspects and it said on the front page, John Doe is guilty of killing blank or arrested for the death of, okay? And people right away think he's guilty. And then when there's a jury verdict, it's on the 50th page. And so that reputation goes on. And that's something that's a problem today. It's lasted for 60 years. People, we hope, Heather, that, if we do something, that people will come forward and say, hey, Mark Shaw's not like that. His reputation, Purdue University just honored me by being the repository for all my books, research books, and everything else like that. I hope that if somebody badmouths me, somebody will come forward, well, he must be okay, or the university would have done that. But there will be people that won't do that. And I'm sure that's happened to you with those people who don't agree with what you're saying on the air and everything, say terrible things about you. How many people are going to stand up? I hope that they will, but many will not.
Yeah. And with Dorothy, when she died, you said she had children. Like, have they been fighting for the truth about her death, or did they accept it at the time? And now, are you in touch with any of her children?
Well, very good question. And I've tried to get them to get involved in the investigation, especially now that the cold case squad at NYPD is looking into it. Unfortunately, they have terrible memories of the last days of Marilyn's death. All right. First of all, on the front page, it says she overdosed of drugs. She and her daughter did not get along. One of the sons they'd had to send away because he was such a problem. I mean, it was a celebrity family, and Dorothy was huge. I mean, the New York Post called her the most powerful female voice in America. Can you imagine that? And so there were those issues. And then on top of that, they didn't get along with their father. They had to contest the will. And then he committed suicide, I think 3 or 4 years later. So their memories of all of that are just so terrible. And so I've given them a pass. Would I like for them to come forward and help with the investigations and things like that? But I think they finally just decided that wasn't going to happen.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's another thing of just crushing the female voice. Like here she was just, in such a man's world and doing so well. And it's like, no, shut up the female voice again. As far as her as a reporter, that is just really sad.
It goes on today.
Yeah.
Goes on today. It's the same thing here. We have powerful men shutting up women. Look at the whole Hollywood scandal, with what women were put through. Both, there's these similarities. One of the great ones, though, is what Dorothy and Marilyn were able to do with overcoming gender discrimination. Back in that day, they didn't want the woman to be in the back seat of the car. They wanted them to be in the car behind. But both women overcame all of that. Dorothy was a college dropout. She's such an inspiration. I get emails from all over the world, and several of them have been young people deciding to go to journalism school because Dorothy was a woman of integrity and they want to follow through with what she did. I've gotten some emails from young people who've read some of my material on Marilyn and saying, if she could handle Hollywood at that time, I could handle Hollywood now. And that's what I hope they will be. Inspiration for young people who will say to themselves, I want to follow in the path of these two remarkable women.
Well, the book is super juicy. It's Collateral Damage. And I know my Juicy Scoopers are going to love it. And it's so, if you know the story, if you really don't, it's just such a juicy story about journalism, politics, Hollywood, that era of time, Frank Sinatra, mafia, like it just, and just the power of like, it really was a time where a handful of people ruled the world. And, fortunately, I don't think it's like that. Some people may disagree. Oh, it's like that today. I mean, I feel like there's so many more outlets to get your opinion out, thank goodness, today. But definitely when you think about like suppressed news and how I'm sure people wanted to write articles about this and then would go to their editor at the New York Times, and the editor who just went to the Kennedy compound for something would say, that's an old story now. You don't need to write it. Like how many people did try to get the word out back then and were not able to?
Yeah, I think that's probably true. My job, I believe, as an investigative reporter and a best-selling author now, is to root out injustice and root out distortions of history and try to change them. There's a quote that's right by my writing table. The dead cannot cry out for justice. It is the duty of the living to do so for them. And so, there's many cases out there like this. I get emails every day from people who lost a brother, a son, a mother, whatever, and they believe that they didn't die naturally. So we've got to be able, I try to help them if I can. My time is limited, but I try to send them to somebody who could help them or whatever that way, because there's all of those kinds of injustices. And that shouldn't happen. Everybody should get a full investigation of what happened to them when they died. And I think that's as important as anything in life.
Well, thanks again, Mark Shaw. The book is Collateral Damage. Get it. It's a juicy educational read. And check out these other books that you mentioned. And how can they contact you? Are you on social media?
Well, good. I'm glad you brought that up. First of all, if you want to know about Dorothy Kilgallen, go to the DorothyKilgallenStory.org. All of the photos, videos, proof about her investigation of the JFK assassination. That's really important. Mark Shaw, www.markshawbooks.com. Markshawbooks.com. There's emails between me and the Officer Panzarella Detective Panzarella with the NYPD. I should also tell you, I wrote a letter to LA County DA George Gaston, which was delivered on Friday, demanding a reinvestigation of Marilyn's death. I sent him the book. I sent him a 300-page evidence report. And so I'm hoping that we'll get the action that we need there to get the justice for both of these women.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You're so impressive. I appreciate it. And like I said, many things that you believe are actually, things that were written about at the time. So you must somehow or another have the same feelings for the women that I do, that they, as to what happened to them way back when. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Well, I have such a juicy Patreon for you tomorrow about some of the things on both the shows I appeared on this week about that I can only share on Patreon, some of the behind the scenes stuff. So please go to heathermcdonald.net, click on Patreon, change your life, and have a wonderful weekend.